Chat, chat. Oh man, I know a lot of people were fiending for this one. Ever since I said I'm pretty sure I made a poll about it around like a few months ago. I said I was gonna do this side video, and unironically, people actually really wanted to see it because, me in particular, we all know I don't rock with size scaling. So to see me, somebody that just not doesn't dislike Sai, but dislikes the way that he's viewed in scaling, and now scale him at his highest point, which is what we'll be doing in this video. We'll be scaling him to his highest point, and I'll be scaling to his highest point. So that's what's so interesting about this, because I have to brutally and honestly take every single thing that the manga has given to us about Sai and come to a great conclusion on how truly strong he is and how he does pair up against, the current skill level we have in Blue Lock and manga, right? So I don't want to waste anybody's time. We know what you guys are here for. If you want to scale side, this is probably the video to go to. So I'm going to be breaking down almost everything he does, right? Down to his statements, to his feats, and we will be taking them almost as literally as possible. What the story gives us to, what the characters gives us as well. Like we'll be taking all of that into account to get into one character, which is more accurate Sae Itoshi, right? So first for starters, I just want to bring up Sae is one of the only characters in the series that was recruited by Real in general. And what makes his recruiting process so interesting is the fact that Sae was actually recruited by Real when he was 13. We already are aware that Kaiser and Ren didn't get a bid from Real until the New Eagles League, and even at that, it took them an extremely long time to get those bids in their career, right? Ren can honestly be excused because he's more of a minor, but Kaiser in this case is 19 years old and, didn't get a bid from Real or didn't get an offer from Real until now. So that's just the first testament to Sai's strength in general, just off the fact that he was recruited to Real at such a young age, which means that he has to be pretty promising. So when we first get introduced to Sae is in an interview where we kind of get a more of a solid introduction. Just from the start, it's implied that Sae can play for the top team of Spain, but the relegations don't allow him to because, he's a minor. But it does kind of, hint at the fact that he can play for these teams once he's not a minor, or he's already eligible to play for these teams once he's not a minor. So he's already reached that skill cap of what is needed to play at that level, right? So next, we kind of get information on Sae wanting to win the Champions League, and he is, revealed to be a new Gen 11, which is one of the chosen best rookies in the world, right? Like, Bunny, Renzo, Kaiser, Loki, he's on that, like he would be thrown in that round of characters with how just dominant they are in games and how high their skill level really goes, right? So Sae Itoshi is already just stated to be a genius where nobody in Japan can really receive his passes. So that means every single striker that he's just played with in Japan is just, inadequate just in general. Like they don't meet that true level, right? So going, a little bit forward in the series, because Sae does not appear that many times in itself before the U20 arc. So we get another mention of Sae's name in third selection when Luna decides to speak about him, as he recognizes Ren as his younger brother. He says Sae made a name for himself on one of Spain's subordinate teams. So basically, Sae is so good to the point where even somebody like Luna, somebody from the World 5, is taking notice of his talent. And on top of that, Sae making a name for himself, even on the subordinate teams, is pretty impressive, since, again, the fact that we know that these teams aren't just like fodder, like they are actual teams that do play on a world class level as well. So we have to take that into account. And even on top of that, right before the U20 arc even starts, it's like we're already getting these this glaze of Sae Itoshi, how big of a deal it is of him joining the U20 team. Like, it makes it so difficult for block to win that they need to improve on their training. Like they need to kick their gear up a little bit more. And I kid you not, the first chapter, basically into this game, Sae Itoshi scores an insane curve shot right past Gagamaru. And then it's just stated that he's the lead actor in this match, already implying that he's only here to make himself look good. And on top of that, he's already playing the best in the match just from the start. Now, back in, because before we get into anything else, there actually is context near here. Back in Ren and Sa's flashback, where Sa comes back from Spain, Ren kind of gives us confirmation that Sa scored in the subsidiary match. That's something. I mean, again, I wouldn't personally know where to rank that myself, but I do think it's something more to the what he was doing in Royale, just narrative in general, right? But like just in general, it's not even just his skill level. Sai in general is a egoist on a different level to the point where even Ego doesn't really know what type of ego Sae Itoshi is after with taking Shido under his wing. He truly just doesn't get it. And on top of that, as the game further progresses, there's certain future abilities in the series that don't even really get touched up on, like Metavision, that Sai is kind of just like speculated to just have. And what I mean by this, I'll show the panel on the screen. This little like gray vision he kind of has here of like scoping the field out, that's most likely Metavision. Now, the evidence behind that is the fact that there are some similar instances where characters will have like certain views like this, and it'll be a Metavision user or a talented learner of some sorts. So we can kind of say that there's a high chance that Sae Itoshi is a talented learner with Metavision. That would also explain why his field of vision is so good and why his IQ is so great as well. But Sae Itoshi is also one of the few rare characters that can just do reflex things like it's nothing, which is actually a very high level thing. In Blue Lock, we already aware that in the Neo Eagles League, we have the Reflex X Reflex goal from Isagi and Yuri and Charles and Shido, which is something that is explicitly stated to be a high level technique that isn't just done by anybody, right? So he's capable of doing reflexive passes to Shido like they're absolutely nothing. And on top of that, again, his field IQ is so extremely high that during when Shido and Sai are about to take a free kick, Sai is capable of deducing that Shido does not have a shot route, and it's clear at first. He also tells Shido it's just taking a free kick the only option he sees. Like Sai is on a different level when it comes to this, and he's even able to broaden up or brighten Shido's own vision of the field and what his mind can do. And somebody like just tunnel vision like Shido that's just not like it's not a normal thing to be able to accomplish, right? Like the fact that Sai can just do that on a whim, it just broaden Shido's like vision of things and how he plays. That is very, very extremely impressive. Sai was also capable of predicting Chiguri's arrival point and was able to place the ball just slightly further than his arrival point on the free kick pass, which actually got them a goal right after this. So I'm not gonna lie, this is a pretty also impressive feat because this is like showing that Sai was able to take into account Chiguri's speed and still get the pass off just an inch away from him, which honestly can be argued if that was done on purpose, since like he kind of explicitly just like boom Chiguri's speed with his pass just an inch right before he could get there, right? And this is kind of more confirmation that Sai's Metavision with the comparison that Isagi makes with himself in their selection with Sai. Like there's just more like evidence being thrown in there that he might have Metavision. If you guys don't know, he does use kind of a pseudo or a demo version of Metavision, which he's capable of using in a reflexive play in third selection. Now, again, Sai is even more impressive to the point where he can intercept Gagamaru's pass and just immediately pass to Shido. This is the pass that actually leads to the bicycle kick that was Shido awakening. And it's literally stated in the manga that this is because of the guidance of Sae Itoshi. So again, it's not even just Shido himself. It's Sai progressively making Shido better the longer he's playing with. And I'd argue that he could probably do this with any striker in Blue Lock. Shido is just so phenomenal, it just looks like even more crazy, right? And on top of that, he's just capable of sending passes to Shido in places where the blue lockers have trouble with him the most. Like even right now, somebody that's copied all D20 defenders still have problems guarding Shido because of the type of passes Sae is sending. Now, this is one of his more, defensive, more prominent feats where he's capable of traveling down the field in almost an instant. He took the shortest route to get to Isagi, and he's capable of shutting Isagi's direct shot weapon down almost completely. Now, mind you, Sae is the first person in the manga to actually do something like this. He cut off Isagi's axis and instantly stopped his shot course, which is something that is very similar to what Hugo is currently doing, crashing into Isagi before he shoots. And Sae started this wave before any of them. And again, I feel like by himself, this is a pretty high IQ feat since it's not like the coach thought of this up. This was purely Sae himself. And we're aware about this just because of how brain dead the coach is and the fact that no other defender tries to do something like this to Isagi, right? And after this little play stoppage of him, we get him actually kicking into a higher gear and we see him playing at a more serious level. Now, what I do think is pretty interesting about this is, although he's playing at a serious level, we are aware that he's still not sweating. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because that means that the current state of the field isn't so intense that it causes him to sweat. Now, he might be upping the gear to simply just prove how much of a skill gap it is between him and the rest of them. I think that's more of the case than Sae just doing this because the level is there, like the game level is there and it's pushing him. I think he is truly just doing this to just kick himself into a higher gear to destroy Blue Lock in general, right? So even now, when he's kicking into a higher gear, he's already stronger than all the Blue Lockers, so now he's just running directly through them. Isagi states himself that Sae is getting serious, and he starts to break through Blue Lock's defenses altogether. I mean break through his defenses, I mean like annihilate the team by himself. He doesn't lose a single dribble, does not lose a single dribbling check here. He just destroys and runs through the team. Now, Sae just dribbles past Yukimiya, and it's explained to us how counter dribbling is a passive style of dribbling. It's a flowing, dodging counter dribble, which not a lot of people can really counter or read or really just handle in the first place. And he breaks through all by himself to the point where once he gets near to the penalty box, he simply just blitzes RU with a pass like right over to the penalty box. And he just does this again and again and again. He does this to Yukimiya and Karasu right after. And then he's even capable of sending a pass over to Aiku, which almost leads to a potential goal until Ren goes in to stop the shot because, he's the only one that understands his brother on the team, right? But that doesn't last long as we see that Sae just simply outsmarts Ren very quickly and passes over to Shido instead of Aiku, which only Isagi is capable of reading. And even then, I don't think Sae is going all out, so that's not like really an anti-feat. But we go back towards the end of the game where, Sae is about to end the game, close the game out, and Ren gets in his way, which I do want to break down this entire scenario, which is pretty much Sae, the higher geared version of Sae, going pretty relative with a U20 destroyer mode Ren. Now, why I don't think this is an anti-feat is because I do think that this version of Ren is junkied up on flow, peak performance, and just every single kind of amp you could give him at this point. And I do feel like, again, Sae didn't expect for Ren to be able to just counter his move because we do have to take into account Ren was also only able to stop Sae because he used this move earlier off and he knows his technique, right? So that was the biggest problem with Ren beating Sae there. By no type of world is Ren a better player than Sae here. But due to the fact of context being involved and the fact that this Ren is junkied up on every single thing you can imagine, he is capable of getting the best of Sae right here. Now, on top of this, when we go over to NEL past this arc, we kind of get some little side glaze in the New Eagles League with Sae was the only one that managed to stop Ren in the U20 game, and that Sae is Ren's strongest opponent, which Ren states himself in the game between Isagi and Kaiser and Bastard, right? So again, even the New Eagles League, he's acknowledged as a player that was still the strongest, some of the strongest opponents that Blue Lock has ever faced, and that Blue Lock has ever faced. And even when right before the Nigeria game, Baratsura walks in and just says that, oh yeah, Sai's on the team too. Ego has to tell them, setting aside anybody that Baratsura brings in, Sae Itoshi is the only person that will be a match for Blue Lock or a problem for Blue Lock. So even with saying that this entire time and assuming Ego is going off of the Sae Itoshi we saw in the U20 game, that's pretty insane to say that a weaker, watered down version of Sae can still dominate and contest with the current Blue Lockers that we've seen, even pre Nigeria. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities, or just like it's insane to say that Sae Itoshi, when he's fully trying, is a big threat to everybody that we've seen so far. Of course, taking out the gigantic world class pros like Noah and Snuffy, when we take into account characters like Bunny, Loki, and Kaiser and Hugo, you can put Sai in that conversation for him being able to showcase such a plethora of feats and a plethora of statements that put him around this level. You can't but discourage him from this level, right? And that was pretty much me going into every single feat that we know and every single statement we know about Sai, and really just breaking down how good he is as a player and a playmaker and just a midfielder in general, right? So I do think where I would personally put Sai at is somewhere around um that world class bubble around the plethora of players that can just destroy and go off by themselves. Like I put him in a conversation with Kaiser, Hugo, characters like that that can really specialize at what they do the best. Sai is one of the most well-rounded new Gen 11s that we have seen so far, to the point where he barely has any anti-feats. The worst thing about him is that he just hasn't showcased his true potential. But even with that, I still think the side that we see can still be put into very, very interesting conversations with some of the current players that we have. Now, that's pretty much just going into this. I think that Sae Itoshi, more accurate version, is pretty much a monster that really can't be stopped by normal means. But that's just me. I would love to hear you guys' opinions on how you view him and how strong you think he is. I know a lot of people are waiting for this video. I know Unknown in particular wanted this one. And you know, that's pretty much it for this one. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.